Thank you, Madam Speaker. Nearly 2 years ago, in late April 2023, Hunter New England Local Health District announced that on the 8th of May, Wee Waa Hospital would be temporarily reducing opening hours due to a staff shortage. The hospital would only operate from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m, and any patients presenting outside these hours would have to go to Narrabri Hospital. But those temporarily reduced hours are still in place. Hunter New England has not resolved the problems that led to the temporary closure. This has now gone on for far too long. There had been signs of problems long before the announcement of reduced hours. Hunter New England Local Health District had failed for several months to fill nursing positions at the hospital and failed to hire a VMO despite lengthy negotiations. As soon as I heard about the reduction of hours at Wee Waa, I contacted the Minister for Health, who gave assurances that he wanted to see the hospital remain open and return to normal operating hours with enhanced services. He reiterated that commitment on several occasions thereafter, in public and in private and in writing to the community. And I note the Minister's in the chamber. I'd like to thank him for his ongoing commitment to supporting the Wee Waa Hospital. The Minister also endorsed the establishment of a community-based Wee Waa Hospital working group to work with the Hunter New England Health District to restore the hospital to normal operation. As a show of good faith and as a sign that he was listening to the community's concerns, the Minister attended a meeting of the working group in August of 2023. There was a reasonable expectation that the Health District should work with the community and their Minister-approved working group to find a solution that would get the hospital back to full hours. It had worked in Nyngan, Madam Speaker, where a shortage of staff had reduced the beds in October of 2022. Nyngan's working group had worked well with the Western Local Health District, and Nyngan reopened in January of 24. But Hunter New England were not so cooperative. They seemed to deliberately undermine the working group and even asked on multiple occasions that I disband the working group. Speaker, I have in my electorate parts of 4 different local health districts: the Hunter New England, Western, Far Western and Murrumbidgee health districts. Three of those districts are good to deal with. They consult with their communities, give reasonable responses to correspondence and seem genuinely geared towards providing quality care to the people in their districts. Hunter New England is the exception. They often give poor responses to concerns raised about facilities and services, and they shift resources from regional areas to metropolitan areas. This is not a complaint about the hard-working health staff who do their best they can under often difficult conditions imposed on them by the Hunter New England Health District. And they are actively discouraged from speaking out, or they are punished for speaking out. This is a complaint about the executive and the decisions they make, their lack of transparency and their failure to engage with the communities they are supposed to serve. And that is most evident in their reluctance to work with their community of Wee Waa and their failure to recruit the staff to make the town's hospital function properly. It has now been nearly 2 years and Hunter New England is still no closer to a solution. They are still without a VMO, still having to send people to Narrabri, still without a palliative care facility that was paid for by the community. The people of Wee Waa have therefore spoken, and I'd like to note there's a few of those people here in the chamber today. I'd like to thank them for their efforts in getting this petition to this place. They have collected around 1,200 signatures on this petition asking the Legislative Assembly to direct Hunter New England to provide the hospital with a doctor, to restore the 24-hour operation of the hospital and to require monthly reports from the Health District until services are restored. I acknowledge the work that was done, and they travelled a lot. They even came down to Martin Place to collect signatures, Madam Speaker. The petition is one part of a drive for accountability from the Health District. It is subject to an independent review looking at the decision-making processes of the Health District Executive, and it will provide that review will provide a roadmap for the restoration of health services at Wee Waa Hospital. There is also a bill before the Parliament to split the Health District into 2 districts. The intent of the bill is to give the New England area back some control over its health services. I want to thank the government for fast-tracking the bill and for referring it to an inquiry which will investigate the possible merits of splitting the Health District. As it exists now, the LHD is not doing its job. It is the only metro-managed health district that looks after country areas, and it shows. They have shown they cannot be trusted to look after the best interests of people in the country. Their efforts are concentrated on larger population centres while regional medical facilities are stripped of resources, forcing regional patients to travel long distances to get proper health care. The petition helps to raise awareness of these problems. As the Mayor of Narrabri, Darryl Tiemans, who's in the gallery today, he said, "Wee Waa has never been mentioned so often in Parliament." That's true. Speaker, in the coming weeks we'll hear more about Hunter New England and how it operates. I will look forward to revealing the decision-making process of the Executive and why they have deprived the town of the medical services they deserve. Speaker, this situation is going to cost someone their life. Wee Waa services a much bigger area where people are exposed to risks that would result in significant trauma. From everything that's happening, Madam Speaker, the bill, the debate, the petition, the independent review, The whole priority of this is to get a solution that will get the hospital back to serving the community as it should. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, and I welcome the guests from Wee Waa in the gallery too. I'm looking for a next speaker, and it looks like it's someone from the member for Coffs Harbour.
Thank you. I too just want to acknowledge the members of the Wee Waa community and the Mayor of Narrabri Shire, Darryl Timmins, into the chamber today. Thank you for coming all the way from northwestern New South Wales, especially during some of the difficult weather you might be having up there at the moment. Regional health and health in general, as the Minister can testify, is not an easy area of government. There are challenges at every step of the way, but after meeting with some paramedics today, when your health is suffering or that of one of your loved ones, you'll give up almost anything to fix their health and to get the best care for them. And members of your community should expect the same. Wee Waa, I'm ashamed to admit, the first time I went to Wee Waa was after being elected to this place. I'd been as far as Narrabri, but never any further. And this was in the height of the drought, and your community, as all communities ebb and flow, it was at an ebb. And right now we know your community is relatively thriving, and yet we see a hospital that's not thriving. Your community, very rightly so, is expecting a at least 24-hour emergency care at that hospital. Given that an emergency can happen at any hour of the day, we know cardiac incidents typically don't happen during business hours. And to put an extra 40-minute drive at the end of someone's care, or even at the beginning of someone's care, not only does it affect life and death decisions, but someone's health outcomes can be significantly worse if they're waiting an extra 40 minutes for care. Because it is, yes, life and death is obviously a huge question that people have, but that extended care can make a huge difference to their well-being later in life. I also want to congratulate you for taking the huge step of coming down and getting signatures here in the centre of Sydney, because people here in Sydney, particularly Martin Place, Macquarie Street, it's about as far away from Wee Waa as it can be, culturally, physically, geographically. But it's important for people in Sydney to know what our regional communities face when it comes to healthcare. From where you were taking your signatures, it's a 50-metre walk. You could throw a cricket ball to the nearest hospital. That's not the case in the regions, and particularly out places like Wee Waa. Just to the points that you've raised in your petition, that you want to direct, first point, directing Hunter New England Health to urgently provide your hospital with an on-site doctor. I think that's a very reasonable request. Part two, restoring the 24-hour operation of the hospital, absolutely, especially of the emergency department. It's a must, and as an opposition, we stand right behind you in that. And the third point of your petition is requiring the monthly report from the health district going to the ministry, to the local member, and to the mayor. I think, again, that is a very important step to increase accountability, not just within the hospital, but also within the district, because as the member for Barwon mentioned, there is some concern in that, a lot of concern in that community about splitting the local health district, and there is a bill before the House at the moment. But certainly the communities of the New England need to have confidence in their health system, and that means they need to have confidence in their health district. And this monthly reporting will go a long way towards giving your community a higher level of confidence than what they might be seeing at the moment. Look, Wee Waa is a town with a long history, the late 1840s. That's a very, very long time ago, and your region provides so much to the state in terms of agricultural output, financial value back to our state. It's only right that the state also reinvests back into your town, and that means having 24-hour health facilities. Because we all know emergencies don't go by a clock, they don't go by a calendar. If you're out on a farm and you have an accident on that farm, you get bitten by a snake, you have a road accident, a cardiac accident, the vast myriad of different things that can happen to someone in regional New South Wales. You want to have the best care for your loved ones available 24/7, and we're right here behind you on that. Thank you.
The question is the House take note of the petition. I call the member for Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the good member for Barwon and his community for bringing this important issue to the attention of the House. I'd like to also acknowledge the organisers and signatories to this petition, and near and far. Madam Speaker, we all know that challenges related to recruitment of healthcare staff are well known in rural and regional communities and have been broadly publicised, including the findings of the previous government's rural health inquiry. And I'd just like to note that I'm a member, our chair here in the House, Dr McGurr, member of the Select Committee on Regional, Rural and Remote Healthcare, looking at communities and their access or lack of to healthcare. And I come here today also with some stories that my son, who's a paramedic, has told me about his time as a student when he was sent to northern New South Wales, and often it was the hospital that some years ago that called the paramedics to the hospital because there weren't doctors. So I do understand clearly what you have put to us today. Attracting and retaining healthcare professionals to regional areas is a national problem, and demand for healthcare staff is outstripping supply, as we know, locally and globally. The Hunter New England Local Health District is working consistently to fill vacancies at Wee Waa Hospital. Attracting and retaining more appropriately skilled nursing staff is the current priority. Madam Speaker, developing and sustaining this workforce is absolutely vital to delivering the right care in the right place at the right time for our communities. And New South Wales Health offers a range of scholarships for medical, nursing, allied health and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander workforce to support New South Wales Health staff and students living and working in rural and regional areas. These scholarships are specifically designed to support and develop the rural and regional workforce. The Rural Health Workforce Incentive Scheme is a key means of attracting and retaining staff in rural, regional and remote locations. And that scheme, Madam Speaker, provides additional incentives and benefits to attract, recruit and retain health workers at these locations in positions that have hard to fill or critical vacancies. From the 11th of August 2023 to the 30th of June 2026, New South Wales Health is offering increased incentive packages of up to $20,000 in our hardest to fill and critical roles in regional and rural areas where the existing $10,000 incentive has not been successful. This doubles the previous incentive for our hardest to fill positions, encouraging more workers to take up opportunities in remote communities with critical staff vacancies. That increased package up to $20,000 will apply for the first year of service, then up to $10,000 per year for ongoing service, and has been made available to Wee Waa. Incentive packages include a range of benefits, including a rural and regional health allowance, relocation and accommodation assistance, additional leave and access to training and education. I'm just going to turn to some of the current recruitment activities. So the District Senior Executive Team has recently met with local stakeholders, including the local GP, who also agreed recruitment of nurses is the top priority for the service right now. The District advertises vacant roles extensively, including on the New South Wales Health Carers Careers Portal, as well as Facebook, LinkedIn, Indeed, Seek, and with the Australian College of Nursing. Hunter New England is also working with public and private health partners in surrounding areas and with New South Wales Ambulance. The Minister, who, testament to his commitment to improving healthcare in this state, is actually here in the chamber today, is working tirelessly and collaboratively with New South Wales Health and the local health district to overcome these challenges and to ensure that Wee Waa Health Service continues to serve the community. The Collaborative Care Program commenced in Wee Waa in May 2024. This is a place-based planning initiative aimed at developing community-led solutions to primary care and community health challenges. And that program is facilitated by the Rural Doctors Network and includes representatives from the Hunter New England Local Health District, the Primary Health Network, local council and community and health organisations in the area. In late 2024, the project group consulted the local community on its healthcare needs via a community survey, and that survey was completed by over 300 respondents, representing around 16% of the Wee Waa population. The Minister for Health has commissioned an independent clinical review of health services and is getting on with the job of addressing these needs.
I call the member for Wagga Wagga.
Madam Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to say a few words in this Take Note debate on the petition. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the member for Barwon for his fierce advocacy on behalf of his community. Wee Waa has a real champion in their corner in the member for Barwon. There's no question about that. I also want to acknowledge the members in the gallery here today and Narrabri Mayor Darryl Tiemans. I acknowledge the evidence they've given to the committee that I lead, that the member for Blue Mountains has mentioned as well, and their continued advocacy. The petition presented by the member calls for Hunter New England Health to urgently provide Wee Waa Hospital access to an on-site doctor. It shouldn't take a petition to identify something as blatantly obvious that the community should have access to a doctor at their hospital. It's an appalling situation, one that quite rightly alarms the community and undermines that undermines its future, this lack of service. The petition also calls for the restoration of 24-hour operations, including emergency care. As a former emergency physician, I can assure the House that 24-hour emergency care literally saves lives. We know that. And yet the Wee Waa community is expected to get by with emergency access just between 8 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. It's stating the obvious, and other speakers have said it, that emergency don't confine themselves to office hours. In fact, Wee Waa perhaps has the only emergency department in Australia that closes at the end of the business day. I understand patients often have to travel to Narrabri Hospital, which itself, I'm told, is often on bypass, and then patients are sent even further to Tamworth or another centre to get the care that they should be able to receive in their community. And it brought to mind a tale I recently heard of a woman who, about to give birth in another part of the state, but in Hunter, New England, actually ended up travelling to 4 separate hospitals in turn, by ambulance and other means of transport before she could deliver her baby. And as more and more hospitals go on bypass, it seems to me that more and more patients, or at least we're at risk of more and more patients being shunted from town to town for their care. Is rural healthcare devolving into treatment by transfer? We don't want that to happen. That's not really good enough. And in the case of Wee Waa, we need to understand the role of the Hunter New England Health Service, what role they're taking or lack of action they're taking in this particular circumstance to support the health of people in Wee Waa and the surrounding area. There's a growing suspicion in rural and regional communities that small hospitals are just too expensive to maintain. And I think there's a view emerging that the bureaucracy just thinks that these services for small towns don't deserve to be there as they are in larger cities. And I think it's important that we take a moment to consider that, because there is this sort of creeping decline as service is allowed to decline, action isn't taken, workforce shortages are said, it's just too hard to keep it open, and over a period of time the service just disappears. I mean, it's 2 years, I think, for Wee Waa, and nothing seems to have happened. And I just want to recount 3 things that we should keep in mind, 3 aspects of this we need to keep in mind for rural communities. First of all, rural communities do have a right to expect services in those communities, not just as Australian citizens, but as contributors to our economic benefit. I mean, rural communities in this country, regional rural communities, contribute at least 1/3 of our GDP. So they should be able to share in the resources of our government. Secondly, it actually isn't cheaper. It's a cost shift. So when health services close and make people travel, when health districts close services and make people travel, that isn't cheaper, it's shifting the cost on to the community. Because you've got to pay for the travel, you've got to take the risk. You're also getting the risk shifted onto you. So it isn't cheaper, and I don't think it isn't safer for the community. It might be safer for the health service at one level, but it isn't for the community, and it's not cheaper. And thirdly, health services are at the heart of rural communities. They play a special role in every rural community. Often communities gather around the health services. No other part in that community. It brings that community together. It's an important part of the community, not just economically, but in terms of the life and vibrancy of those communities. So it is important that we maintain, restore and rebuild services in our communities, and this petition highlights that in the case of Wee Waa. I do want to acknowledge the ministers here today. I do want to acknowledge the major work that this government has done in terms of the incentives for workforce and rebuilding the rural workforce, and the minister's own personal commitment to rural health, and the support he's given to our committee to try and continue to address this issue. But, you know, we haven't got there yet. We have not got there yet. And this petition is a wake-up call to this creeping decline of services that we now must say, enough is enough. Let's stop this. Let's rebuild and restore services for our regional communities.
The question is that the House take note of the petition. I call the member for Northern Tablelands. The Minister comes in reply after you. Yep. So you go first, member for Northern Tablelands.
Firstly, I acknowledge the Minister and the member for Bega. Since I've come into this place, both of you have been fantastic with your access, and you've both been fantastic to speak about regional health. Wee Waa is a great town that contributes a huge amount to not only the New South Wales economy, but the Australian economy. When I look into the gallery, Speaker, and I see those faces of people that I know for a fact that just those people in the gallery would be contributing so much in tax to our country, and yet here we are debating a petition about whether those people deserve to have a hospital. Of course Wee Waa deserves to have a hospital. Every regional town in New South Wales deserves to have a hospital, because the health of regional people is just as important as those who live in Bellevue Hill, Double Bay, Rose Bay, and all through Sydney. The health of regional people is just as important. And one of the main issues that we have is staffing. And the Minister and I, and Member for Bega and I, have spoken about this ad nauseum. And this is our problem at Wee Waa. Our problem at Wee Waa is that we don't have a doctor. We can't get a doctor in the hospital there to keep that facility open for 24 hours, and then it's that snowballing effect, because when we can't get a doctor, the nurses get burnt out, the nurses don't want to use their hospital as a triage centre, and then the nurses start walking out and going to work in bigger centres. And this is the problem at the moment that we're seeing right through regional New South Wales. And the federal government has to step up here. The federal government has to do so much more to attract regional GPs, or to attract GPs to practice in the bush. Because if the federal government does not step up, then this place has its hands tied in a large extent as to what this parliament can do in terms of attracting and retaining GPs to regional New South Wales. My concern is, Madam Speaker, that the Wee Waa Hospital is the thin edge of the wedge in terms of all rural and regional healthcare. Wee Waa's right on the edge of my electorate. The member for Barwon and I are electorate neighbours. And my concern is, firstly, Wee Waa deserves a hospital. It should have a hospital. It should not be a triage centre between 9 and 5. It should be a 24-hour facility. My concern is, where does this stop? If we don't draw a line, and if we don't address this issue now, where does this stop? Does it flow west? And does it then impact Walgett? Does it come up north? Does it impact Moree? After Moree, does it hit Inverell? I mean, Inverell's a triage centre at best. We've got this fantastic new facility there, yet we can't staff it. And the reason we can't staff it is, in my opinion, is the federal government in Canberra is not doing enough to get doctors to the bush. It's that simple. It could be doing so much. Why isn't the federal government looking at tax incentives for regional doctors? Real tax incentives, not just knocking a few bucks here and there off the HECS. That's not going to do it. We've been doing that for a while. It's not working. It's about time Canberra actually realised that regional New South Wales is crying out for doctors. And I look at the Health Minister, and to be honest, I feel sorry for you sometimes, because my God, you've got a terrible portfolio. Everyone in this place respects the job that you do, but you can only do so much. Canberra's got to step up. It's that simple. And all of us in here, whether it's an election year or not, We have to be working on Canberra. We have to be talking to our federal members. We have to be telling them, for goodness sake, start doing something. We've got to look at tax incentives. We've got to look at HECS debts. We've got to look at regional incentives. The state government are doing what they can. Canberra's got to step up, and at this stage, it's not, and this is what's happening at Wee Waa. As I've said, this is the thin edge of the wedge. We have to stop it. This is something that, you know, crosses the political divide. You look at this side here, there's Nats, there's independents. None of us are arguing here. None of us are arguing. We all agree. So let's all work together to fix this, to get Wee Waa back up and running. And then let's go to absolute town on our federal members and ask them, tell them, demand that they actually extract the digit and start doing something about getting doctors to the bush.
The question is that the House take note of the debate. The member do you seek leave, member? The member seeks leave to speak. Is leave granted? Leave's granted.
I'd like to make a short contribution to this debate in relation to the petition around saving Wee Waa Hospital. I acknowledge those that have travelled long distances to be here today to witness this debate. Now, this is testament to how we live, breathe and work in regional New South Wales. We're used to travelling long distances, but we want to make sure that when we travel those distances, that we get the services that we're travelling for. So when you look at the geographical location of Wee Waa, when you look at the Hunter New England Health Service, when you look at the services that were once on offer, 2015, and you can go back even before then when those services were on offer, particularly at hospitals like Wee Waa. Now, when you talk to Hunter New England Health and you talk to other health districts across regional New South Wales, they talk about declining populations, they talk about reduced presentations at a particular location, so they then look at how do they then staff those facilities if those presentations are not being held at a level where they need to be maintained or they're declining. But I say it should be the opposite. They're talking about presentations at Wee Waa Hospital being low. The reason why those presentations at Wee Waa Hospital are low is because the community cannot trust the service that will not be delivered at Wee Waa Hospital. They will go to Narrabri or they'll go further afield because they know when they get to Wee Waa they're going to be shuffled on, or it might be closed after 5:30. And God bless the nurses, the two nurses that are there that are doing a great job during the day, but unfortunately people will go to Narrabri, so the presentations are down. There is an old saying, build it, they will come. I firmly believe Hunter New England Health should come to the table in goodwill and look at a plan for Wee Waa Hospital. Over the next 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years, grow that hospital back to where it was. You're not going to do it overnight. The 24-hour service should be reinstated at Wee Waa Hospital, and Hunter New England Health have to come up with a plan. They have to come to the community in good faith and show them that they are committed to reinstating the services that Wee Waa community demands. Come up with a plan. 12 months, 18 months, 2 years. The health minister's here and he does a great job. He understands regional New South Wales and I work closely with him. So that's the way forward, I believe. Look at a plan, a sustained plan, a 18-month, 2-year, 2.5-year plan to get Wee Waa Hospital back to where it should be. The other part to that is the accessibility of GPs as visiting medical officers in our rural and regional centres. There is a great disparity between the fly-in, fly-out locums versus having a local GP in a small community. And I talk about Gunnedah Hospital, for example, and it happens right across other regions too, where a fly-in, fly-out doctor will come to a regional centre for the weekend. That doctor might come from wherever, earn up to between $2,000 and $3,000, even more for the weekend, to sit in a small rural or regional hospital, maybe see a few patients. If it's a little bit too difficult, they just ring the ambo and they shove them off to Tamworth or wherever they go. Then you've got local GPs who used to, in days gone by, be the VMO, be that visiting medical officer, where they would attend to their patients and they would then serve the hospital. Local GPs want their fair share. Local GPs are not getting the same rate of pay that a fly-in, fly-out is receiving. Whereas a local community want that continuity of care. They know that their local GP, they're going to see them when they go to their local hospital. They want to know that that background is safe and the doctor they go to is following their healthcare plan. Not someone who's coming in on a weekend and they have no idea who they are. It's no longer acceptable to accept the workloads and the risk of the past. There needs to be new models of dealing with VMOs, new models of dealing with fly-in, fly-out locums. I firmly believe if you pay a local GP in a small regional centre the same amount of money that a fly-in, fly-out would receive, those local GPs would then do their VMOs quite easily and would be accepting of the community in terms of working with that local hospital. There needs to be a new model. There needs to be a new model brought forward. And this is where I think local health districts right across regional New South Wales need to work with their GPs, come up with a plan to get them back servicing their community because they want to work at their local hospital. It's just way too hard.
I apologise, Member for Tamworth, for the noise intrusion there. Now I call the Minister for Health in response.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I firstly acknowledge the member for Barwon? This is a topic that he and I have engaged with on a lot. I want to acknowledge his advocacy personally. I think you're a terrific advocate for the bush. Said it more than once in this place. You always give a damn about the things that matter to your community. And I want to thank you, to the Mayor, thank you very much, and to the local community members who are here today, as well as to my Parliamentary Secretary, who's a terrific advocate for regional and rural New South Wales, and to all of you, and to those in the House on both sides. Thank you for your advocacy on behalf of the communities that you represent, particularly those here from regional, rural and remote communities. Last week I joined with the member for Barwon in receiving this petition from the Mayor and local community members. To receive a petition in excess of 10,000 signatories is a testament both to the work and commitment of Mr Butler and as the local member, the Mayor and of course the local community, and to the deeply held concerns of that local community and surrounds regarding their access to health services. I sincerely and honestly acknowledge those concerns and want to assure the community that the government is committed to the delivery of essential health services at Wee Waa and surrounding communities. I've said this before in this House and I'll say it again when I have been asked what keeps the Health Minister up at night. There's probably 100 things, but the biggest issue is the way in which we staff our health services and our hospitals. No more is this so than in regional, rural and remote New South Wales, where we face significant challenges in relation to this. Madam Speaker, for this reason, a temporary reduction of services, as has been described, did take place at Wee Waa in 2023. Under these temporary arrangements and as recruitment efforts continue, and I want to emphasise that, the Wee Waa Health Service Emergency Department has now operated from only 8 a.m. until 5:30 p.m, 7 days a week. I want to acknowledge that the community deserve better than that. I want to acknowledge that the government is determined to work with the local community and the health district to get a doctor on site 24/7, and we are committed to that health service going forward. I want to be really clear about that. But to support what is a challenge at the moment, last month the member for Barwon and I announced an independent review into services at Wee Waa. From time to time in government, as I'm sure the other side face, there are some wicked problems that perhaps if the same people are looking at it over and over again, you're getting the same answer. It's not a discredit on them, but it's an opportunity for people like me to step aside and allow a fresh set of eyes in. The independent review will be led by a subject matter expert and focus on the current and former service models and make recommendations to ensure residents can access safe, sustainable services now and into the future. The group will be comprised of independent experts with a range of experience across nursing, midwifery, safety, Aboriginal and rural and regional health. The review will consider the health needs of the local community, workforce recruitment and retention, the biggest challenge we have, decisions around services and models of care. This review has begun in March 2025 and it will deliver a report to government in mid-2025. Can I once again thank the member for Barwon for bringing this petition to the House and his ongoing advocacy. thank the Mayor and the local community representatives, thank those people, those members who are in the House today, particularly those from regional, rural and remote New South Wales. We've got a lot more to do. As the member for Wagga Wagga says, the work is not done. And to be honest, when I leave this place, I hope the next minister says the same thing. We've got to always look to improve our regional, rural and remote health services. We have more work to do to improve access to healthcare in communities like Wee Waa. I look forward to the findings of the independent review, to sharing them with the community in a transparent way, and then working further with the member and his community to ensure they have confidence in their local health service.
Thank you. I now call the member for Barwon in reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a correction, I understand I might have said 1,200. Nearly 12,000 signatures, 11,788 from memory is the number. I'd like to thank the member for Tamworth, member for Coffs Harbour, member for Blue Mountains, member for Wagga Wagga, member for Kira and Minister, and the member for the Northern Tablelands. Look, just running through that quickly, the member for Coffs Harbour, thank you for acknowledging the efforts of our volunteers. That's great, a lot of work. And you're right, the hospital service is a much larger area. Towns and localities, Rowena, Pilliga, Marra North, Burren Junction, Cutterbry, all in the catchment, all where there's lots of agricultural equipment that can cause a pretty traumatic injury. I'd like to thank the member for Blue Mountains. You talked about the national and global challenges in filling positions, and that's absolutely true. I suppose where I come at this from, of my 27 hospitals and MPSs, we've all got staffing issues in 27 of them, but this wouldn't be allowed to happen somewhere like John Hunter, and it shouldn't be allowed to linger at Wee Waa. Member for Wagga Wagga talked about delays in receiving care and the importance of timely care to ensure that people survive, and I think that's a really good point. And Joe touched on something else, what I call the bank model. A couple of people did. The idea that you basically change the settings so that the traffic through the door drops to the point that you can say, well, no one's using the service, so we don't need it anymore. And a couple of other people in different ways talked about the same thing. A couple of speakers, including the member for Northern Tablelands, talk about the area's contribution to state and national GDP, and I think that's a really important point. They should get health care. You also talked about the federal GP pipeline, and I would say that the state has done a lot more than the federal government in this space to try and improve the situation. Member for Tamworth talked about a lack of confidence in services, and at the moment that is certainly the case. You also talked about FIFO or locum services versus a doctor living in the community, and I agree 100%, but at the moment I think I'd accept any sort of doctor at the hospital to get the doors open. The Minister, I'd like to thank you, Minister, for your genuine approach to this problem. From this debate we can see, Minister, you are not the problem here. You are not the person stopping hospitals from having staff. This is about recruitment and about making sure there's motivation to do this. And I look forward to working with you to get this resolved. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The question is that the House take note of the petition. All of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.